Hello, friends, and welcome to Binge O'Clock, the podcast where we watch something and then we talk about it. I'm Joy Selden, and I've seen almost everything.
I'm Danielle Nga, and I've seen almost nothing.
I'm Nella, and wow, this is why we can't have nice things. Like at all.
What is why? That the writers on this show just decided to wake up one day and choose
murder.
What is it that they
always
chose?
choose
Murder?
I mean, they always choose murder for one. Boy, but you know what? I didn't think I would have as many feelings for this episode, but I think I'm going to be able to bust out some feelings before we hit end on this recording. So I guess let's get into it.
Okay.
Well, so yes, for this episode of Binge O'Clock, we are covering Fringe, Season 4, Episodes 11 through 13. And, wow. A lot went down. You know, so many plot points kind of happen. We finally get to Astrid's meeting, which is amazing. We find a town that is actually existing in both universes and somehow sabotaged by David Robert Jones, in theory, to disappear off the map, which is terrifying.
Yeah.
How does that just, like, happen in the world? Like, what happens to the news cycle for that? Anyway.
Can't wait to find out. Oh, wait, I'm sure we won't find out. I'm sure this will just be hand-waved in a normal world.
And we also had, oh, yes, the bees.
It's the
Better Humans episode, right?
It's the IVF medical malpractice episode, but with murder. Lots of murder. So much murder. Because we always choose murder.
Always. Okay, wait.
Why
So
are we
let's start with episode 11, Making Angels.
This episode is so... Well, first of all, the plot of this episode is weirdly, you know, like, he chose murder, but he chose mercy killings, I guess, with this sort of, you know, basically a TSA agent finds, you know, one of the observer's devices that allows him to see the future.
Mm-hmm.
And he is able to see when, you know, people are going to screw up their lives or screw up other people's lives. And he kills them before they have a chance to do that.
Yep. And first, he explains to them very carefully why this is for their own good and tells them all about the suffering that they are either going to experience or cause. And then he sprays them in the face with this little, like, psst, and it's over. Which, you know, I feel like this isn't a unique storyline, right? But there was kind of a Fringe spin on it in that he, like you said, stole... September's device? Yeah. He stole September's device from the lake.
September, once again, swear jar up. Like,
yeah.
September, get it together.
Or get better at covering your tracks.
Right.
You know, if you're not going to follow the rules, don't follow the rules, but then, like, clean up your messes, man. Because what happened is that as September was attempting to save little Peter from Raiden Lake, I guess his device fell out of his pocket somehow, and Neil Chung found it.
Yeah. Although, way to bury the lead. Yes, he's a TSA agent, but he was also he was an MIT professor.
Yes. How is that even relevant to the plot? What if they just left him as a TSA agent because he's using the observer's device? It's not like he actually solved his equation. Right?
Yeah. It's like, I mean, okay, look, I understand that there's, like, the meme about, like, the mother that you can never please. I understand that that's, like, a meme. But, like, we didn't need that at all. We didn't need him to be, like, out of this position of, like, obviously he's an incredibly intelligent man, like, and then he walks away from it all because he found this thing. But he could, I don't know. It's the weirdest religious flex because it's all wrapped up in this, like, religious fanaticism of like, this is a miracle from God. He has made me his, like, angel of mercy, which is always weird to me. That's always a weird flex. Like, and then they also bring in the thank you, Mom, mother. Because of your disapprovingness when Dad and my brother died and you were like, God took the wrong one. That motivated me to murder. Mercy murder. It's really messed up.
It is pretty messed up. And maybe I'm projecting a little bit here, but did it have to be an Asian dude with a disapproving mother who...
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing.
Oh, you're like that whole I'm never going to be good enough for you moment. And the fact that he's also a math professor, which wasn't even relevant to the narrative, like all three of those things came together. And I was like, who? Who is the casting director? And did they do this on purpose?
It had very 90s feels of like what we thought a tiger mom was.
Yeah.
You know, like, you know what I mean? Like what white Western Americans were like, oh, that's just a tiger mom. And it's like, but we're not, oh God, please stop. Stop thinking, stop saying, stop everything. Yep. Stop this bus.
Yeah.
I want to get off.
Exactly. Not the representation we asked for. Not the representation we needed. None of the above.
Because then he also commits, suicide by cop, which is...
Oh. Yeah. That wasn't great either.
No, it's just, I love seeing Chin Han and things. Like, honestly, this kind of made me want to have, like, guys, what if we did a skyscraper movie night? Because he's pretty much the damsel in distress and, like, The Rock has to save him.
I have not seen this film.
I think we should watch it.
Add it to the list.
I enjoyed it was such dumb schlock. But he pretty much is like the building owner who's like being held hostage by like this weird Scandinavian terrorist. And I'm just
I completely forgot about that. I completely forgot that was part of the plot.
Yes, remember that movie had a plot?
Oh, yeah, because it was so not his fault. Like, it's not his fault that this episode was written that way. I think he did a really good job in it. He was a very compassionate angel of mercy. He delivered his little monologues effectively. It was just annoying.
But yeah, no, I agree. It was just like, oh, that guy, I love seeing him. Why this episode?
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Oh, no.
It was I did think it was funny that it was like a vengeful mercy angel who works at the TSA.
That's how he finds his victims.
Yeah, I thought it was, I don't know, I just had this moment of like, just imagine like TSA agent, but he thinks he's doing an okay thing by like taking out these people before it was such a weird random mix of people also, where it was like, I guess it's because he was targeting people who by their own actions would screw up other people's lives.
I mean, it's
the cancer guy. The cancer guy was the 5%. So that wasn't his own actions. It was just that he was going to go through this awful experience.
Yeah, he was going to suffer.
Right.
Yes.
But it's like you can't give him like, fine, then give him like 6 months where, yeah, the chemo sucks, but you're still getting your life in order instead of killing him outside a bus stop.
Right?
Yeah, like he probably hasn't even given his passports to anyone yet. Like, come on, let him get his life in order and then kill him. For goodness sakes.
Yeah, he was not doing his job well, in my opinion. But then again, TSA agent chose murder, and what did we expect?
I mean,
what did we expect?
I know the symbolism was very Catholic, but I was like, what's this Protestant like Lutheranism nonsense where like your sins are immutable and only a select hand, like, and there's no such thing as free will actually, like you will sin, and therefore we got to take you out now.
Yeah, I'm not really sure what branch of Christianity was meant to be represented here, but...
Sorry, when I mean Lutheranism, I mean more Calvinist. Let's not get it too twisted there, but you know what I'm talking about. But like, yeah, the whole idea of just like the woman who drinks, right? And like, you're going to kill your boyfriend. You're going to, you're going to do all these terrible things because you can't stop your addiction. It makes for a good villain, but there was just something about the execution that just felt like, ugh.
Yeah, and I mean, it doesn't really track with what happened at the end of the episode either, because it doesn't take into account intent, right? Yes. When you commit a sin. So at the end, like Joy mentioned earlier, he cannot literally commit suicide because he thinks that if he does that, then he won't get into heaven. So he gets Olivia to kill him by facing a gun at her, but then instead shooting the window right behind her. Right?
Because the murders don't count, Danielle.
Well, that's the thing. It's like, but you did that knowing that she would kill you. So isn't that just a different form of,
right?
The math isn't mathing.
Didn't you put yourself into a situation where you would literally die? Isn't that still suicide?
Although one would assume that because he has the observer's device, he saw that it would happen that way. I mean, isn't that how the device, he would see his own death through the device?
Right. I mean, he knew when the police officers were arriving. That's why he went and got the gun in the first place and then had his little soliloquy moment with Mom. I think the fact that Olivia was so offhand about shooting this guy was a little bit strange. Like, she was just so casual about it. Where afterwards she just kind of says to Peter,
we're getting a lot of season 1 Olivia vibes.
We are, where she was like, on reflection, I don't think he meant to shoot me because he shot the window behind me. And I'm like, on reflection, it's too late. You killed him. He's dead.
Yeah. That's why when you discharge your gun in the field and kill someone, usually your gun gets taken away from you and it goes under review. Because killing someone in the field generally is considered a bad thing and it needs to be investigated. Mm-hmm. Just throwing it out there.
If only cop shows actually investigated stuff like that. Just putting that one out there. But then you would never have a cop show because every single cop would have to take away their weapon.
Or would have to figure out how to not shoot somebody. But, who does that? Wow, that's a downer.
Yeah, we were telling some friends that like every Fringe episode always has a death in it. Like sometimes it's the good guys killing somebody, and sometimes it's the bad guys killing other innocent people.
Yep. Yep. And sometimes it's both.
Sometimes
like
it's
in
both.
This episode.
But all of this to overshadow the wonder that is Agent Farnsworth meeting Astrid.
Yes. Okay, I like that you differentiate them that way because in my notes, that's how they're written. It's Astrid and Agent Farnsworth.
Exactly. That's exactly what it is.
It's 100% that. Real quick plot summary for our A plot. I mean, well, technically it's our B plot, but it's our A plot. We believe it's the A plot.
I was going to say, it is our A plot.
We have decided it is the A plot. But Agent Farnsworth in the alternate universe has just buried her father, come out of a funeral, and didn't really know where to go, so she thought she would visit Astrid on this side. And one thing I love about that is Broyles over there is like, we never thought she would just check herself out. Like, she has such high clearance.
She has such high clearance, and she is literally in charge of processing the clearance and transfer papers. He's like, I never thought that she would take advantage of this system. It was
We
beautiful.
never thought she'd do that.
Yeah.
And then Olivia, like Fauxlivia, having to be like, yes, but, Agent Farnsworth doesn't do anything without a reason. Like, let's not send a team. Which, by the way, Broyles is like, let's send a team to retrieve her. Lincoln and Fauxlivia have to be like, no, that's fine.
Not necessary.
We don't need a team. She's our friend. We can just go fetch her.
Yeah. And, they meet and... Man, it's just this like weirdly magical moment between the both of them. And it's just amazing to watch the two of them talking to each other. And then, of course, Walter like having a preference for Agent Farnsworth. And I was like, of course you do.
What I like is that, Astrid sort of gives some weird looks, but there's never that like, I'm jealous of myself kind of thing. Like, I think it's more the fascination with, the difference that's there.
It's jarring. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like it's jarring to see you, but not you.
We have that great part where Astrid sees herself and she screams. And then Olivia's like, oh yeah, I wonder why more people don't do that.
And that's exactly it. Like everyone in this show should be throwing some really weird looks because it's a strange situation.
No one ever expects to see their doppelganger. Absolutely no one. And they have this really touching episode where throughout it, Agent Farnsworth is trying to process this grief over her father, and sort of noticing the relationships between the people in the lab and Walter and Peter. And my favorite question is still but that's your son. He's like, no. And she's like, as I understand it, that's your son. Trying to very pointedly understand Peter and Walter's relationship here.
It's so interesting because I think that she is part of the reason their relationship takes a turn. And I don't mean for the worse. She's part of the reason their relationship changes because in that moment, Walter is trying to explain to her that looks like my son, but that is not my son. And Agent Farnsworth says, so wait, whenever you look at him, doesn't that cause you to suffer? And he says, yes. And then she says, well, then wouldn't it be better if you just accepted that he was your son and then you could love him and be happy? And Walter's like, huh. And from that moment onward, their relationship changes.
It's so beautiful.
It really
is. It's her trying to process her own grief through the other people around her while also helping with the case. Because let's face it, on the case that they're working with this TSA agent, they never would have found this TSA agent had Agent Farnsworth not been there.
What is TSA?
Yeah. What is TSA?
It's so beautiful. She is the one who notices it's the same badge number on all three people's, whatever it is, passports or ID badges, whatever.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then Walter gets so indignant of why didn't you notice that? And Astrid was like, it didn't matter. They traveled at different times. They were on completely different flights.
And then kind of the button on the episode, or the part of the episode that focuses on Agent Farnsworth and Astrid, is when the two of them finally talk about their relationship with their respective fathers.
And Agent Farnsworth having this very distanced relationship and attributing it to the fact that she's always been different and could not love him in the way he understood. Mm-hmm. And, Astrid, I think, in this moment has a, kind of a choice, because she can either sort of say, well, I am very close with my father, but I don't think that has anything to do with
the way that you are. Yeah.
Right. Or she can, sort of stretch her truth a little bit and really just sort of say, we're distant, but, I think he knows that I love him and I know he loves me, and maybe he can't always show that the way, I expect him to or want him to, but I know that to be true, and sort of give her a little bit of peace, which I think is really important for their relationship.
Of course, then it smash cuts to Astrid getting home that night. Dad's in the kitchen. He's wearing a shiitake happens apron. And as soon as she walks in, he goes, that kind of day, huh? Because he can just tell.
I know.
And she wishes that she could talk to him about her day, but she can't because everything she does is classified. And so he says, well, I can cook for you and I can give you a hug. And I was like, oh.
It was really pure. It was really pure to see such a loving relationship for Astrid to have with her dad. But it does feel a little jarring because, and you understand that it's once you see it, it's oh, she was stretching the truth there. Because maybe she did have a more tumultuous relationship with her father when she was younger, but now as an adult, sort of, maybe he's gotten his stuff figured out and they're trying and it's much different and maybe a little more loving, or maybe that was never the case and it was never a problem and she was just trying to protect Agent Farnsworth's feelings in a way. I don't know.
No,
I mean, it's really great to see, and it's great to experience that with Astrid and to see that slice of her life. But then it's also but I wish you could have been truthful with Agent Farnsworth.
I agree, and I wonder whether my headcanon is that there was a kernel of truth in what she was saying, because I'm sure that when her mother died of cancer, that there was a time in their life where they did have trouble connecting and they did have trouble sharing sharing their emotions with each other. And maybe she was pulling from that a little bit, but clearly they've gotten past it.
And I think too, there's, I don't know how much she can really share, because while they are essentially the same person, they have different experiences and they are different people. So, like Agent Farnsworth also talks about at like the funeral, how the Reverend was talking about how he was this great man and all these different things, and like a pillar of the community. And I don't necessarily know that her father is the same. And that's not to say he isn't, but it's also like, we don't know exactly who Agent Farnsworth's father was. Like, maybe he was a little bit more like Astrid than, a little bit more like Agent Farnsworth than Agent Farnsworth even knows. Like, it's really hard to kind of tell. So I also understand, like, I can't say my exact experience because I don't actually know what you've gone through. You know what I mean? And it's hard to share that kind of thing where your basis is just not the same. Like, your baseline is different.
Yeah.
But I do wish she could have been a little more truthful, but I know, like, the way Agent Farnsworth was talking about it, like, all Agent Farnsworth would have heard was, okay, so it is because I'm different.
Right, it's your fault.
That's her only takeaway. Because she has no other choice but to take that away, because she doesn't have anyone else. She doesn't have her mom to talk to, and, like, her mother always knew what to say and knew what to do, and, like, she doesn't know. And, like, she wandered into an alternate universe to talk to her other self because she didn't have anybody to talk to. Like...
Yeah. That's pretty desperate and pretty sad. And it's definitely that thing of, you read the Wikipedia page and, like, making my eye twitch where it says, as she suffers from Asperger's syndrome, she concludes the only person. And I'm like, back up the phone there on the S word there. Like, and I understand that this was 2012 and we're still bad about acknowledging autism as not something you suffer. Like, and yet.
Wow.
And yet.
Wow.
Yeah, no, I saw that and I was like, no.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. So when you keep that into mind, like, of course, like, yes, you can write, a character as autism who people do treat poorly because they are not listening to them. They do not take any care in treating them like a human being and understanding how to just basic interact with them and pay attention to the things they need. Like, right? That's absolutely something that can be written. But here it just feels like, no, we're just going to slap this on her. And these are the problems that come with it. Simple, right? And it's just like, no, not at all.
No,
not at all.
Yeah. You can see it in the episode that it's just such a thing that she's not, she doesn't really have anybody else. So who does she go to see but her double? But, like, I think it's good for her to see how the other Fringe team also interacts.
I mean, she has such wonderful moments with Walter when she would never have that with Walternate. Walternate is so warm and just thrilled with her in so many ways. And I do think it helps her in that moment. Someone like, not just like using her because she's good at her job, but someone who is delighted by the things that people find off-putting about her. Like, delightful. And of course, the first thing he tries to do, I mean, true, he does this because he's just fixated on making eggs. But the fact that he's instantly like, I'm going to cook for you. Is just...
I know.
Nonsense. Nearly all cultures react to death with food.
It's just really pure. It's really pure. And it does make your heart break because it's just like, man, if Agent Farnsworth could just be like on permanent assignment over on the other side, she'd be fine, actually. She'd fit right in.
It's so true.
We have space for Agent Farnsworth in our hearts.
We do. She can stay with us anytime. 1,000%. Oh my God, Walter would adopt her in a heartbeat. We have to talk about the other two episodes, but if listeners, if you couldn't tell, we really liked this episode.
This was a fantastic episode. Y'all, I know we have to move on, but we have not even talked about Fauxlivia and Walter.
I know.
Oh, I know. Okay,
which is also in this episode. The Viper.
Real quick, I love that the jock has to is like, oh my God, I really got under your skin, didn't I? Because he's so mad, and she's just like, a lot of times when people are this angry, it's because they like the person. You like me, Walter? Don't you like me?
God, she's such a jock brat. She's such that high school jock, and I'm like, how dare you make me like her? Show.
That's the thing.
How dare.
This is the most likable she has been ever.
Yeah, yep.
And she's able to break down Walter's walls so perfectly because she reacts to him in a way that is truly disarming. Vagenda. Like when he dumps her all of the stuff that she left in the lab on the desk, and he thinks it's going to be this really angry moment. Like, oh, you left all this junk here. I can finally send it home with you. And she's like, oh my gosh, you saved all of this for me? I can't believe it.
I know.
And then with a small canister, and he's like, what kind of spycraft is this? And at the end of the episode, she reveals it's a tin of mints. But it's like other side mint, so they have a weird, interesting flavor, and he's delighted by it. So much so that he actually gives her the red vine, which he's been grabbing from her hands the whole time.
And she gives him the mints, which are bobbins. Whatever the heck that is.
Bobbins.
Similar to wintergreen or whatever.
But
it's
smoky.
But smokier. And it's such a... Oh, God. I really like that they were able to put a button on this because it's nice to see, because it's like, it's not as, look, it is dastardly, right? That she like impersonated Olivia and she was basically a spy for the other side. But it definitely doesn't have the punch that it had in the last, like when it was Peter and it was taking advantage of Peter. And it was just such a nice way to be like, yeah, I mean, I messed with you, but like nobody got hurt.
Right? Olivia was just fine over there. And then we switched back. Here she is. Broyles didn't die in the process either, right? So she was literally just doing her job.
Yeah. And it was a really nice button to put on that relationship, which I appreciate the show for giving us because I feel like they didn't have to, but they were just like, let's have them make up.
Yeah.
The Viper. Detente.
I know. Detente. It doesn't mean I have to like her. Are you flirting with me? In your dreams.
Precious. Absolutely precious.
Babies.
But then that leads us to our second episode, which is probably one of my favorite tropes, if I'm being honest. Like, there's nothing I love better than the town you can't escape from.
Really? I didn't know that.
No, I don't know why. It's just one of those things where I have such a stupid soft spot for it. So Joy picked up these video games called The Darkest Picture Anthology or whatever. And like one of them is called New Hope. And it's like, you're trapped in a town at night and it's completely abandoned. And it's like you're being chased by a weird monster thing. And like, like Silent Hill, like all those things. I'm a sucker for that type of things. And then you'll not only give me, it's a town you can't escape from, but it's a weird murder town too. Like people are getting
the weirdest
murdery
of murder towns
up in here. Like, oh, you just came in for some rhubarb pie and he served you up a slice of murder instead. Like, what's going on? And I'm a sucker for that. And what we find out is because of our friend David Robert Jones, Jared Harris,
David Robert Jared Harris Jones, yes.
This town of Westfield is merging with its alternate in the other universe, and anyone who's alternate is still within the confines of this town. They're merging with themselves, and it's driving them crazy before inevitably killing them, really.
Yeah, because they can't, their brains can't handle double memories being dumped in there. And then they do that really wacky thing where not only do they have double memories, but different parts of their bodies start doubling and replicating. Yep. So that first guy they see with those, you know what? When I first saw this, I thought that they were just like the pupils of a goat or a sheep.
Yeah.
Definitely
it was a very
like
blink
eyes.
and you miss it. Ha 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 ha.
Mm-hmm.
Considering
Definitely
his eyes.
Yeah.
But then when they examine the woman back at the school and she's got a set of teeth under her teeth, that's kind of creepy. What's going on?
Yeah, the 2 rows of teeth was not great. Not great, Bob. Not great.
Yeah. That rhubarb pie scene really escalated.
Oh,
quickly.
really? Right?
It went from like rhubarb pie with Ray to 2 dead bodies.
Yeah. That really
and
escalated
a third one
really
behind
quickly.
the counter or whatever.
And a third one behind the counter, just there on the floor. Poor Walter's like, and you offered to give it to me on the house. And then suddenly he's being slashed with this giant cleaver.
Which I have a lot of questions about alternate pie guy. Like,
Yeah.
and the rage going on there. That's a lot of rage.
I mean,
over
I
some
think,
pie.
it felt very dementia or very Alzheimer's. It felt very like mental illness of like your brain breaking down and you not being able to, yes, you're not able to remember things very clearly. Somebody might all of a sudden think that they are who they were 10 years ago or,
Yeah.
And it gave me a lot of that vibe, which was definitely a place of like, I don't want to say I've experienced because I've mostly heard stories and I've only seen it a couple of times, but I've definitely seen where somebody could become violent because they're constantly being told that the thing they're saying isn't true or that someone else is constantly trying to talk them into, well, that's not true. That didn't happen. We're here now.
I get that, but there's a big difference between being get the floor jar out of my pie shop and now I'm going to attack you with a floor jar knife.
A giant knife.
Well, you also had Cliff. You also had him in that moment say, no one's going to steal my food, not you and not Cliff. Because Cliff is the one who's not affected by it. And all I can imagine is like Cliff showed up and was just like, what's wrong with you, man? What's going on? I'm not crazy. You're crazy. Like that. He felt like the kind of guy who would do that.
Oh, interesting. Or came in guns blazing.
There's that too. I mean, especially since they've been holed up in the school for how many days did they say it was? It was like a week, 2 weeks or something?
Yeah, something.
Like that, yeah.
So it's also just like, how long has this guy been wandering around out here? Like, before he succumbed to like his, I don't know. It's just such a, starting the episode, it felt like, oh, is this like a time slip town? Are they stuck in a time loop? Is it rage pollen? Are we on a murder planet, but it's really a town? Like, which one is like, come ye to the festival? Like, which one is it?
Nella was like, murder planet.
I really had my hopes on murder planet.
I like rage pollen. Rage pollen is also very good.
Love that good rage pollen trope, but it wasn't. It wasn't that. Just organized.
I definitely, so like, I don't, this is actually a fair point. I don't necessarily understand the diner, Big Willie, as he was called. I don't necessarily understand, because his name tag literally said Big Willie. It was one of the funniest things I saw in that episode.
Oh,
I was like, who puts Big Willie on their name tag?
Why did I think it said Ray? Did my brain just 100% make up that name? That's so
Did it say
weird.
Ray?
Ah!
Wait, was Ray one of the dead guys in the diner? Oh, no.
I don't know. We're having a real Berenstain moment where we both looked at the name tag and saw 2 very different things.
I wasn't paying that kind of attention, so I can neither confirm nor deny.
Neither confirm nor
tag
deny.
was.
Both things remain true unless we look it up, so let's just not.
Schrodinger's name tag.
Schrodinger's name tag.
But yes, like I keep imagining this guy there for what must have been a week or 2. Almost nobody, like people start trickling into the diner and then almost nobody's showing up. And like his routine is slowly getting like deteriorated while he's also experiencing two completely different lifetimes. Like the thing he said about like, this is my busiest shift, right? Like, and Walter's sitting there alone.
It's empty. Yeah.
It's empty and there's nothing there. Like like it makes sense for, I think it was like Cliff's sister who like killed her husband because she didn't remember that was her husband.
Oh, yeah. She thought he was an intruder.
You know?
Yeah. Like, that makes sense, right? Like, that kind of violence, tragic, makes sense, right?
Yeah. And I just think people just slowly, you know, actually not that slowly, probably very quickly, just started to deteriorate faster and faster.
So quickly, in fact, that the entire almost the entire town is dead in the span of a few days. Like the entire town murdered each other.
560 some odd people.
Just murdered each other. What?
Every time they
ridiculous.
passed by that sign, I thought like the number would tick down, I swear to God.
Okay, wait. So now the part of this episode that is also important to the overall narrative of the show is that in the midst of all of this, Olivia starts getting memories of her other self, the AU. And of course, everyone panics and thinks that she is being afflicted by the quote disease the way everyone else in the town is. But Walter tests her blood. He doesn't see the replicating DNA that he sees in everyone else. And so he goes, no, it's fine. You're not going to be wiped out by your alternate self.
And then he makes a big deal about it. Well, it's probably just your empathy. You were always a very empathetic child, especially during the Cortexiphan trials. Like, it's probably just that. You're taking in all the energy that's happening around you right now.
Right. And spoiler alert, it wasn't just her empathy, or it kind of was, but it's her empathy perhaps increased exponentially by Nina's Cortexiphan injections. So we have to zoom into episode 13. It turns out that Walter and Belly saved 12 bottles of Cortexiphan because these men never destroy the results of their scientific experiments. Never.
In every timeline.
In every timeline, they refuse to destroy incredibly dangerous materials. So anyway, Nina goes into the vault, which is biometrically sealed. Only she can open it. Pulls out the vials and is like, look, Walter, there are 12 vials right here. I didn't steal your Cortexiphan or reverse engineer it. And Walter literally picks up a bottle, chugs it, and is like, nope, that's not Cortexiphan.
And
so
what was it? It was like salt water with Ida and with like food dye or
color
something.
number 4.
Yeah, potassium iodide. And yes, red number 4. A food dye Walter knows well.
So ridiculous.
I just love the idea that he can clock red number 4. But yeah, like we get the tail end of the middle episode 12 is, you know, Olivia is starting to basically turn into the Olivia that Peter is looking for all intents and purposes.
And like as much as I love to see these crazy kids back together, it is deeply uncomfortable because like it's just Belle to me, like, and maybe there is an alternate explanation for this, but it just felt like Belle-Livia all over again. Like, like she
that
has
it was too abrupt and
and then the Olivia we have been dealing with is now trapped while some other version is running the show now.
Yes, Peter's Olivia, because it doesn't even happen slowly. It happens over the course of, 12 minutes of airtime. But at first, both of the memories are living together in her head. And then Peter's Olivia takes over and her memories become really hazy. So much so that by the end of episode 13, she just, quote, is Peter's Olivia. She doesn't know how to be around Peter when she loves him and feels like he should love her and knows that they're close and he knows her better than anyone and she knows him better than anyone. And why isn't she seeing that coming from him?
Yeah. And it's very complicated. Also complicated because of, Peter has made this mistake before where he trusted someone who looked like Olivia, but who was not Olivia, not his Olivia. And it's just really nice to see that moment of like, but I've done this before and I don't want to make the same mistakes again. I can't do anything until I'm sure. Except he's like, but I'm starting to get pretty sure.
It only takes an episode.
That's the thing. He goes from literally saying, I cannot do this because I've made this mistake before. I betrayed the Olivia that I love, to not 5 minutes later kissing her in the car outside the gas station. And I know it's not 5 minutes of their time, but it was 5 minutes of our time. So
it was very quick.
Sudden.
Like, look, the episode 13 basically opens with him bringing her to Walter and being like, test her right now. Something is very wrong,
Yeah.
and ends with them. Well, not quite ends with them smooching in a car, but basically ends with them smooching in a car.
But then, of course, yes. Walter lays the guilt on pretty thick.
Oh, that was so good.
I know what you're doing, Peter, and you need to stop it right now. It's just like,
listen, what am I doing? This is my face.
He thinks that Peter's projecting his memories onto Olivia because Olivia is super empathetic. And then when they're going into the storage locker and Olivia recalls that the last time she opened a storage locker, it was full of Semtex. Peter's like, wait, but I didn't know it was Semtex. And then it's like, dun, dun, dun. These are not my memories. Those are actually his Olivia's memories.
Yeah. So I guess we should get into like with the actual plot of this episode, which is, of course, murder.
The B plot.
The B plot.
The B plot. Look,
Murder.
Every time I watch this episode, I'm like, I'm pretty sure X-Files did this and they did it better.
Oh, no.
Look, it's not a great A plot. I feel bad for the character we are personally introduced at the... Is it a mental institute? I'm assuming it's a mental institution.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. His name is Sean.
Yeah, Sean, who is basically hearing voices and has been diagnosed as schizophrenic. But when Walter actually visits him and talks to him, actually has this, and because of his background in fringe science, he's like, but he's not really exhibiting the signs of schizophrenia. Like, most of the time, those voices are persecutive or basically it's grandiose. Exactly. They're not talking to him. Like, they are not interacting with Sean. They are talking to each other, and Sean is basically listening in on the conversation, which is a really fascinating idea of like this hive consciousness DNA strand that they all share. Basically, IVF, DNA, trying to create the master race, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, very bad. Very, very bad. There's a doctor who is an IVF clinic, and he uses his own DNA when he inseminates all the women.
I know. It's truly the greatest hits of can you really trust IVF of it was the doctor's DNA because he's egomaniacal. Like, he was trying to make the perfect human. He was just reaching back into our genetic history to like reintroduce things that we've evolved out of over time. Like truly the greatest hits of this nonsense. Although, can I just say, like, I don't know what it is about Douglaston, New York, but it's not exactly a place where I'd be like, nice night. You know, it's a good Friday night. I'm going to go out with the lads and have ourselves a murder.
So we were also watching this episode with a friend of ours, and, you know, me and this friend have sort of similar pasts where, like, you know, maybe we, like, hung out and you know, probably did things we shouldn't have been doing at certain ages. And inevitably it was like, oh, yeah, Douglaston. Douglaston's an interesting town. And it was literally like, what do you mean it's an interesting town? It's like, well, if you don't have a lot of pocket money and you don't really have a car and you don't know where you're going, it's really easy to get to by public transportation. You can just walk around it for hours. And then, like, smash cut to these three boys killing this dude. And so it was just like, yeah, I mean, all those murders that kids just do in Douglaston, that's not what I was talking about.
No, I mean, but that was the beautiful thing, because, like, I've never really been in Douglaston. Like, I grew up in Suffolk County, you know. There's parts of Queens I haven't visited yet. And, you know, that they show this, you know, nice house. And both our friend and Joy were like, oh, yeah, that looks like a Douglaston house. And I was like, oh, where is Douglaston? And I look it up, and, they're chatting about, like, yeah, when you're a teenager, Douglaston. And then murder happened. I was like, oh, I see. Okay, it's that kind of teenagers. Okay, cool. Like, what? Who do you think you are, Suffolk County boys? That's kind of the nonsense Suffolk County kids would pull. Murdering a guy in his house just because you can. Because you're white and rich, and your daddy didn't love you, but he gave you B DNA. Like, come on.
Gave you B DNA. Where? BNA.
BNA.
I don't, like, what, like, so I understand that the doctor was like, I don't really know who they are. I had 200 patients, but I was always tweaking the formula. So who even knows who these, like, this cluster or whatever the hell they are? And, like, he doesn't really understand their powers. He doesn't really understand a lot of things. And it's just sort of like, I don't know who they are, but I have a pretty good idea. And this might be why. And I'm like, why? I don't know. It just felt weird. It was like we're trying to cover our tracks because we just want to live in secrecy. And I'm like, you could literally do that. Just continue talking to yourselves. Just don't talk out loud. You don't have to talk out loud. You're telepathically linked. Like...
Or just don't murder a bunch of people.
We could have started. We could have started by destroying the files.
Exactly.
In the storage unit. We could have started and stopped it right there. Because fundamentally, then what's the reporter got to work on?
No one can find you.
Precisely. So then you write a story about a guy who did weird experiments and used his sperm on IVF. So if maybe then they were worried, well, then our moms will know they were serviced by this clinic from the years of 85 to 95. And then our parents are going to try and sue them. And then the spotlight's going to be on us. Like, but I feel like that's a lot of forward thinking for like 16-year-olds.
Too much forward thinking. You know what's easier than forward thinking?
Murder.
What if you just murdered? Always choose murder. This show, Fringe, always choose murder.
How many times do you think we said this word, that word this episode? What do you think?
Murder?
Yes.
Maybe I can put a count.
Let's put a number. Let's each say a number now, and then we'll go back and listen to it later and see who is closest.
19 times.
22.
I'm going to do Price is Right rules and do 1. No, I'm kidding. No, I feel like it's closer to 35, actually. I feel like we've said murder a lot. I'm not counting this conversation where we've basically said murder 5 times all by itself. But yes,
right, we'll find out.
I think we're up to one more thing.
Almost. I think we should just mention how that episode ends.
Yes.
Oh, sorry.
Right?
Yes.
So here's the thing. So now we know Nina obviously doing this weird Cortexiphan thing against Olivia's will. This is where I started getting really salty. And I was like, if it turns out Nina's a shapeshifter, I'm going to be pissed. If it turns out William Bell was a shapeshifter, I'm going to be pissed. Like, really starting to get, really, be in my bonnet, if you will. And then after the kiss in the car, Liv goes to use the bathroom at a rest stop, which, I mean, always a mistake in any property ever. Disappears. Peter goes looking for her and she's nowhere to be seen. And the guy at the counter does not recognize, a blonde lady walking in looking for the bathroom. And then smash cut to Olivia waking up tied to a chair with Nina tied to a chair in front of her in a murder basement. And Nina just being like, it's pretty much giving it's going to be all right. And Nina is obviously not doing too well herself. Nope, and now I'm like, did she yeet herself into another universe? Is she like, what's going on? Was this all a dream?
Who's that in the chair?
Who's that in the chair?
Is this AU Nina? Is this actual Nina?
Is it actual Nina? Is it AU Nina? Like, is it shape-shifting Nina who's just trying to get information out of Liv by pretending to be trapped as well?
Guess we'll have
This
to keep
show makes
watching
me
to find out.
paranoid.
Well, that's exactly the problem. It's like when we were talking pre-pod about Olivia and Peter, and we were like, this is so messed up. It's so messed up that he's making this mistake again. But what if he's not making the mistake again because he thought that he wasn't in his universe, but actually he is? Is this
And what
his
if it
Olivia?
actually is her the whole time, right?
That's what I mean. Like, what if this is actually her?
And he rolls the dice and he rolled right and he won. I don't, but it's just, but experience, Peter, you're two out of three. 2 out of 3 times, Peter. It hasn't been Olivia. It was Fauxlivia and then it was Belolivia. Third time doesn't necessarily mean it's the charm, Peter.
And this is the part where I very carefully don't react because I know exactly who Olivia is.
Do you want to know what's been driving me crazy, Danielle?
Yes, what is it?
Every time Joy's like, and then season 5 gets so weird, and I just look at her and I'm just like, what's weird? How could 5 be weird? What makes it weird, Joy? And she's just like, I can't tell you. And I'm like, this is going to drive me insane.
Like, it's all weird. Can it get weirder?
How is it weirder than what we're doing now? How do they make this weird? Now watch, it's going to be like, there's actually nothing weird about it. It's a completely normal police procedural show with no weird science at all. And that's the twist.
We thought we were in a grand old adventure when we were ripping down the BQE, and now here we are.
Paul Newman wakes up and it was all a dream.
Okay, now we're ready for one more thing.
Yes. So I have mine. Oh, no, Nella, do you want to go?
I just wanted to say that Walter signing off with Kirk out gives me life.
Oh, love. Yes. Kirk out.
But that's it.
Kirk out is amazing.
Okay, mine is quick. Or is yours quick?
Oh, is your quick? You go first. I wonder if we're going to have the same one more thing.
Okay, my one more thing is a Walter and Peter moment from episode 12. And it's when they do that super close work with Walter and Peter are solving the math problem together to figure out where the center of the two merging universes is. And I love that it was very similar to what they did with Walter and Belolivia in that one episode where they were solving the problem simultaneously on opposite sides of the see-through whiteboard.
Right.
Except they're both bent over the same map and they're simultaneously drawing on different parts of it and they're completing each other's sentences and then they arrive at the answer at exactly the right moment so that they can say in unison, Cypress and Quimby. And it was beautiful. I loved it.
Yeah.
It was good.
No, it was great.
The Bishop boys are back, baby.
The Bishop boys are back. Yes. Again.
I'm so glad you mentioned that moment because I especially loved it since that's what we got in the first handful of episodes of the whole series. And we haven't really seen that since, right? Because you haven't seen them really work together. And initially it was Peter who was the roadblock. And now it's Walter who was kind of the roadblock. And it was just really nice to see all of that resolve. But yes, my one more thing is also fast, and it's Agent Farnsworth's reaction to coffee.
That is precious. That was precious. Man, you better send her back with a pound of coffee.
Right.
Come on. That should be just part of the perks of working for the Fringe department. A steady stream of coffee.
Avocados and wine.
Seriously.
All of the above.
Coffee, avocados, and wine. It's just a gift basket of all three. It's the weirdest gift basket you will ever find. Does that also mean chocolate is hard to come by?
It has to be.
I would imagine so.
It's the same. It's
right?
the same. It's the same band of temperature as coffee. If coffee goes, chocolate goes.
Oh, terrible.
Yeah. No, I know. Think about that.
And on that downer.
Yeah. On that downer, or positive note, since we don't live in that universe yet.
Hey.
We would love to hear from you. Please check us out at Binge O'Clock Pod on Twitter and Facebook, where you can answer the question, what is your favorite food-themed apron pun? You can also email us at bingeoclockpod@gmail.com. And don't forget, we have a Patreon. Find us at patreon.com/BachPod.
That's right. And tell your friends, tell your family, tell your loved ones, tell the live lobsters in your life about Binge O'Clock, and we will see you next time. Did you have a pun, Nella?
Oh, I mean, yeah, just to point out, I mean, thinking about it, the whisks ones are okay, but my heart belongs to Penny for your thoughts. That's where my heart lies.
Penny for your thoughts.
Penny for your thoughts. As the person who's always in the kitchen and people wander over to the kitchen to talk to me, like, Penny for your thoughts.
Oh, I like that. Yes. I like the kitchen as a social place. I'm the person at the party who inevitably moves away from the living room and into the kitchen.
Yeah.
So that I can just kind of
hover.
That is what breaks my heart about now being in Flushing, because my old apartment had the California kitchen, so it had the window, and I could be in the kitchen and talk to everyone in the living room and not have to move from the kitchen to see anyone. So, breaks my heart just a little bit, but so it goes. Such is life.
We're trying to figure that out. We'll see if we can put a window in there or something.
that'd be so
Who
nice.
knows? Who knows? But anyway.